No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Hey guys, welcome back to some more reviews. The Explorer of Horror here, and welcome to my review on the 1972 film Fritz the Cat. Now, this movie, a film that's been making waves for many, many years. I mean, this film, very controversial, very infamous, was the first ever X-rated animated film, and its sequel, The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, was the first R-rated animated film. So, a lot of history with these movies. I'll be talking about both of them. Now on here, it says unrated, so I assume it never got an R rating. But Fritz the Cat, not really a horror movie, but it was unique enough where I want to talk about it and discuss it on here. And I don't want to keep this 100% horror movie discussions. I just want to make sure it stays relatively horror-based. But I do want to branch off sometimes and talk about some other things I've been wanting to talk about. IMDb is not working with me today, guys. It is just not loading. My internet right now is it's real bad. Real bad. I don't know what we got to do, but we got to get it fixed or something, because this internet... real slow. But anyways, enough of my life. Fritz the Cat, movie by Ralph Bakshi, who would go on to do so many important things in the world of animation, from Lord of the Rings. Did he do The Hobbit? I'm not sure, but I know there was a Hobbit animated movie. Fire and Ice, which I did see, and I thought it was pretty good. He did one called Coonskin. What was that one? Is it Heavy Traffic, I want to say, is what it's called. A lot of his earlier stuff was really R-rated and really raunchy. Just looking at his filmography and looking at the first 3 or 4 movies he did, it was just very, very, very controversial. Speaking of controversial, Fritz the Cat is a movie that, when you look back at it, and I look back at the 70s and the 80s and the 60s, I come across these movies sometimes that you just won't see again. You will not see Fritz the Cat remade today. Or if they did remake it, it wouldn't be this, some would say, problematic. I think the sequel's a bit more problematic, and we'll get to that. There's some stuff in there that I'm like, yeah, they'll definitely never do shit like that again. But here, a lot of that shit too is in this movie. It's the opposite of PC. It's kind of made that way. It's sort of a gritty, upside down look at New York in the 70s. And it's just a story about Fritz, this cat who is in college, and he has this epiphany one day that he realizes his life is bullshit. The books, the studying, working for the system, all these people around him he realizes are pretty much zombies, stuck in the ever-revolving wheel of education and you know, politics and all that stuff. And so he wants to break away and sort of go on a journey, and, you know, kind of reminds me of like a hippie, just kind of wants to live free, but he's not really all about all the hippie lifestyles. He's more just doing his own thing. He's gonna go do what he wants. And he goes on a crazy, drug-fueled, just wacky ride. He's not a very likable character. It ain't like you root for this character. But it's a very interesting thing to look back on. Especially this first movie. I think this first movie is definitely the best out of both of them. Even though I don't mind the sequel, I think this one has a bit more to it. Has a bit more meat on the bone. Has a bit more to say. As far as where politics were at the time, how people were feeling. Very, very political movie. And it's just an sort of world of chaos in this movie. It's not really a replica of our world. It's just a very apocalyptic, upside down, un-PC, just on its head version of the real world. And it's super gritty New York. At least I think it's New York. Wherever it is, it looks like gritty New York. And even the animation style is just so different and so unique and so this movie. I know Ralph Bakshi has changed his animation style a lot in his films. Maybe his earlier work looks like this, but just a really unique look to the movie. I think it's got a very good animation style. You see a lot of titties in this movie, a lot of like anthropomorphic titties, so that's in there. You see drugs and craziness. At one point, Fritz has this epiphany later on in the movie that he's going to lead a revolution, and he starts a riot and people get shot. And you have these... I like this movie, but there is stuff in this movie that maybe you could argue it was meant to be problematic or meant to be sort of offensive. It wasn't like I was totally offended at the movie. But this is one that, you know, even with Trauma, there's some movies where I'm like, you can't do that now, you know. But there's some choices in here that are definitely, you know, you show this to just anyone and they'll get kind of upset. You know, the crows in this movie, you get the feeling that they're, you know, not the feeling, but they're pretty much black people as the crows, and they're very stereotypical and very, just a very kind of, yeah, problematic, to say the least, depiction of black people. A lot of just women getting beaten, the way that Fritz looks at women, you know, more as like objects. He could care less to listen to them. When he meets people, when he meets these girls he likes, he immediately starts groping them and being perverted. So he's not a very likable character. This isn't a movie where you're looking at likable characters. I can't think of one likable character in this movie. Pretty much everybody's awful. But it is a unique view into a society gone mad, a world gone mad. And it's just, it is what it is, man. It's there. It's taking you on a wild ride. And you just got scenes where Fritz is, you know, smoking weed and doing drugs and having orgies. I love the music in this movie. I do want to give some positives because I like this movie. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the film, but I really do like the movie. I think it's an important movie. I think it's a film that we can look at from the 70s and look at where the times were, look at where the world was, and this movie, to have the guts to come out back then, and this is just, there was no way to really see this movie besides maybe viewing it in a grindhouse theater, or maybe at a low rent, rundown drive-in. As I actually did hear from a podcast, people was talking about drive-ins and grindhouse. And I guess they actually did have X-rated drive-in theaters back in the 70s, so that's very weird. People just drive on the highway, oh, what's playing over there? It's like a bunch of X-rated stuff. But to make this movie, and it actually made a lot of money. It was a pretty big success for what it is back in the 70s, and it made a lot of noise, and it has a huge cult following. I really do like the movie. I think it's got a lot to offer. I enjoy the animation style. I enjoy just the craziness of it. It's a ride. It's a wild roller coaster, and there's just so much to it, and it's just bizarre. Bizarre is to just say the least. Like, it's just such a anti-establishment movie. It just doesn't give a fuck. It's doing anything it wants to do. And I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the certain creative scenes. And just whenever Fritz is daydreaming, they do a lot with the animation. There's a lot of really cool scenes and the visuals. And For a low budget animated movie, it looks really, really good. They don't really reuse a whole lot of animation. There's a lot of bright colors, and it's super 70s. I know I've already said, but I love the music. The voice acting, the guy that played Fritz was probably the best actor. I don't know if it says on here his name. And IMDb is just an infinite loading wheel, so I'm not having any luck with that. But the guy that voiced Fritz the Cat was probably the best actor. I thought most of the other characters, it's not really a movie you watch for characters and acting, an amazing story. It's just for the events that unfold. And there are these villains that show up, and one of them is a Nazi, a neo-Nazi, and they have this plan. They're going to blow up this electric tower because they think they're part of the revolution. And Fritz realizes at the very end of the movie, it's like the one thing he does that's looked at as good, that he has to stop these terrorists from doing this, and he ends up stopping them, which ends up being the only positive thing he does in the movie. And it's just it's very, very well done for what it is. Technically, it's a very well made movie. Again, I don't think it's aged very well. I think over time, there's things they do in this movie, whether it was for comedy or not, it's just a little problematic. Things in there where I'm like, ew, it's not funny either. That's the thing. If it was funny and I laughed at it, which I know it's like, well, why would you laugh at something like that? It's like, well, sometimes edgy humor can be pulled off. I don't think just because there's an edgy joke in a movie, it means that it should instantly be canceled. But it's not really that funny to me in this movie. I didn't really laugh at a lot of the stuff. And there's just a lot of bizarre behind-the-scenes stuff. It's based off of a comic strip series by Steve Krant. Or no, is it Steve? My bad. That's the producer. Based upon the characters created by R. Crumb. And I know he was very pissed off at this movie because Ralph Bakshi was very political with it, went a much more bizarre, heavy on the politics side of things, and I know that the original comic creator was very upset with that. I'm not sure about the comics. I've never read the comics for Fritz the Cat, but I know he really didn't approve of this movie or the sequel, and him and Ralph Bakshi kind of butted heads a lot while making this movie. Also, a weird thing, I guess they went out for certain scenes and they recorded conversations, real life conversations in the movie. So if there's scenes in the movie, if you guys go out there and watch it, or if you have watched it, if there's a scene in the movie where it seems like there's just dialogue that doesn't really mean a whole lot, that kind of goes on for a minute and it sounds like it shouldn't even be in the movie, like a deleted scene or something like that, that is them basically going out and recording people while they were talking and not even telling them they're going to put it in the movie. So that's definitely a little bit of a shady tactic. While I appreciate Fritz the Cat, and I do like the movie, I do respect the movie for what it did, I think it definitely has its problems. There's not really, and I don't think there was really meant to be any likable characters. I don't think there was really meant to be a PC movie. It was meant to be a movie that was against the system, that was totally against the culture and against most of the morals and stuff like that. And it was meant to make people mad. I mean, I think you're supposed to kind of get at least a little bit, pissed off while watching this movie, especially back in the day. This was meant to piss people off. I mean, hell, even on the poster, they put, "We ain't X-rated for nothing." So it's like, they knew what they was doing. They were making a controversial film. And it's controversial. However, I do think it's a very well-made movie. I think it's an extremely well-made animated movie. Ralph Bakshi would go on to have an amazing career. And this is one hell of a way to start your career and make a lot of noise. So I think they knew what they were doing. They were going to make a movie that was going to make noise, that was going to really be a culture shock. and that's what it ended up being. And it became a big success. We got a sequel, and he wanted to make tons and tons of movies. I mean, probably his most infamous one, I would say, that I've heard the most about is Lord of the Rings, which I seen that like one time back in school. I think they played it in school for us like one time. Thought it was okay. But yeah, this is a one hell of a way for Ralph Bakshi to start out. I would recommend it. I think everyone should see Fritz the Cat. You may not like it. It's not for everyone. However, I do think if you love the 70s, you love gritty movies, you love dark comedy, dark humor, edgy stuff, a lot of anti-establishment stuff, and they will never make a movie like this now. If they remade Fritz the Cat, they would not do half the shit that's in this movie, especially in the sequel too. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a raunchy, wild ride. I'd assume if you were on acid, or maybe smoking a little bit of the green, if you were, maybe a bit high while watching this movie, it wouldn't be a bad idea. There's a lot of really groovy, I'm saying that because it's a 70s movie. I don't really use that a whole lot, but really trippy, groovy, psychedelic type of movie. So I'm assuming a lot of people watch it. I'm assuming probably high. So, yeah, I mean, it's just good music, well animated. It's a pretty well-made movie. I like the film. I think it's pretty well done. But Fritz the Cat, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5, or a 3.5 out of 5. I'll put it up here somewhere. I enjoyed the movie. It's good. Fritz the Cat is definitely a solid movie. But anyways, y'all, that's my review for Fritz the Cat. Stay tuned for a later review on the 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, which was actually the first Fritz the Cat movie I seen. But anyways, y'all, thank you guys so much for watching the review. Take care. The Explorer 4 is out, and we'll see you guys on the next review. Peace.